This is Breaking Through the Mayhem, the Silently podcast series, bringing marketing industry leaders together to discuss the ever-shifting media landscape. Learn about the ins and outs of real-time marketing, influencers, data privacy, technology, and so much more. All from industry experts with real experience, giving you the real answers. Now, let's break through the mayhem.
Welcome to Breaking Through the Mayhem, hosted by Sightly. We have an amazing guest, somebody who I know for a bunch of years. Consider him a friend at this point, one of the great people in the industry. Hard to stay in a role that he has for as long as he has. He always evolves. Really, really smart guy and also a good guy. So welcome to the show, David Campanelli. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. I remember our first interaction, and I often remember these. I had no idea who you were, and I had a problem and called you up, and you fixed it without question, with no prior relationship, and you took care of it. And I don't never forget people who do stuff like that. So I remember that first time.
That. Thank you. You know, it's funny, like first interactions that come from a negative that turn into a positive are like my whole life. So I think you're like a spitting image of my career, my podcast, everything I've ever done. So thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And same mutual respect back for you, and especially the amazing agency that you work for. So to kick things off, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself for people that don't know you?
Sure. So I head up the investment teams here at Horizon. I've been here for 27 years now. Worked my way up through the ranks, and really kind of as the company grew, provided a lot of opportunity. And yeah, so oversight, I grew up on the honestly TV side originally, video side over time. As the years went on, took on more investment lead of different media types. Most recently, the digital investment team, probably 6 or 7 years ago now, and then very recently, in the past 9 months or so, the kind of performance digital team, search, social, programmatic. So now it's really everything investment related runs up through me, which has been continually challenging as you have to learn new media types and how the nuances of how everything works. But it's been an interesting ride for the last 27 years.
I love that. How many people were at Horizon when you started?
So when I started back in '98, I think there were around 100 in the New York office, and I don't know, a couple dozen in LA, and now we're like 3,000 people, something like that. So it's been quite a ride. People always ask, not to ask questions on your podcast, but people always ask, how have you been there for so long? Why have you been there so long? And I don't know, it's almost cliche to say, but it really was like, it's a different agency every 5 years. In the early years, because of the growth, how many more people we had, how many clients we had, and just how much we were growing, which always provided me great upward opportunity, that we just had, we're growing. So I always had opportunity to move up, and I guess did a good enough job along the way to warrant being moved up. But also in the last, 10 years or so now, it's also growth, but also just how much the industry is changing. And like I said, taking on new media types, particularly the performance digital stuff. I hadn't had a ton of exposure to, a little bit of exposure to programmatic, less to social and search. And now learning that stuff from scratch is, it's kind of been invigorating. Really think 27 years in, you're going to have a whole bunch of new stuff to learn, but it's been a nice challenge.
That's unbelievable. I mean, 100 all the way to now. How many people have been there as long as you?
There's a handful. I have one person that reports to me has been here longer. Another person who started like 2 months after I did. Of course, Bill. There's a handful of people, not too many left.
It's unbelievable. That's really cool. Was this your first job? 27 years, or were you
So First job out of college was at ESPN in production up in
Wow.
Bristol. I studied TV production in school, and I thought I got a job at ESPN, sports and TV production. Like, I'm set for life. And it was the best bad experience of my life because it was a really tough job. It was 6 days a week. It was nights. You're watching games and creating highlights. So games are on at night, and you're working 5:30 to like 2:30 was the shift. And it was 6 days a week, and you didn't get paid overtime. It was just it was rough. And I remember sitting. It was back in the day, the ESPN News when it was live. It was like a newsroom, and you'd be a teleprompter, or run the teleprompter. So you do that for like a 2-hour shift, and then you'd sit in the newsroom for 2 hours just waiting. And I remember sitting there, and in the newsroom were like, it's 8 o'clock at night, and the Peter Gammons and Harold Reynolds and Carl Roberts are getting ready for
Dude, Peter
the
Gavin's brings me back.
oh yeah, they're getting ready for baseball tonight at 10 o'clock, and the Sports Center team is, producers and stuff are getting ready. It was kind of cool to listen, but then at some point I was like, these guys are, my age now, 50 years old. They probably have families and kids, and they're working Tuesday night at 10 p.m. I don't know if I want that for the rest of my life. I don't. I don't want to work
You
weekends.
also didn't know if you were going to be Peter Gammons. Let's be real too. You're
Well,
like,
not on
am I
air.
gonna,
Not on
am
air.
I
But
gonna
like,
get to that level?
I'm talking
You're
about
talking
like
about the people that were your peers.
I was talking about like, I mean, I was a assistant, a production assistant. I'm talking about the people who
Got
ended
it.
up as executive producer of
Those
Sports
are the
Center.
people that are always in the picture at the end of the season, where they give the one thank you on Thanksgiving to show
Yeah.
the rest of the NFL crew, and they all look so happy for that one moment, and they're
Right,
like,
right, right.
"You've been doing this
But
for 30 years."
it's a tough gig, just the hours, the time of it, like working nights, working weekends. You're on when sports are on. I worked Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day the year I was there. I had Thanksgiving off because Thursday was my day off. That was the only reason why I had it off. So it was just, I just recognized like, I don't know. I don't want to be 40 and be working nights and not see my kids. And
Who's the coolest person you met while there,
coolest,
or most iconic?
it
Most
was,
iconic.
it was when Rich Eisen and Stuart Scott did the
Oh my
2
God.
a.m. Sports Center. It was Dan Patrick and Kenny Mayne doing the 11. So they were all cool to work with. I mean, work with them. I didn't really work with them very closely. I remember not loving Stuart Scott on air when I was just watching, and then as the highlight assistant, you would write down, like you'd watch the game, you'd log what would happen, and then you'd pick out the plays that were going to go into the highlight. So if the time was short, you just run the highlight, literally a tape in your hand and the script in your hand, to the studio, and it would like go on in 30 seconds or whatever. And they would just the anchor would try and read what you wrote. But the 2 a.m. Sports Center is usually a break, and you could like sit down and like talk them through the highlight, because Stuart Scott's not watching 27 games that night, right? He's hearing from the assistant, whatever. And some of the guys didn't care. They're like, whatever, get out of my face. Stuart Scott would like pull up a chair. He'd ask you to sit down, take you through the whole thing. He'd like rewrite it in his words. So I was like, oh, he cared. That was really great. And then like Dan Patrick was the best at, you'd literally run it as the highlights going on at 11:15. It's 11:14. You hand him a piece of paper, and he makes it his own, like on the fly.
And he's good to go.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And then there was other guys that I won't name since this is being recorded, who just like butchered everything you wrote and just would read word for word what you said, and like it was just you could tell the guys who were like really good at it. But
So you went from ESPN to Horizon. That was the
I did. I answered an ad in a newspaper, which I don't think people do anymore, and I had no idea what media buying was. Not a clue. I studied production in school. No idea what it was. I knew it had something to do with TV, and it was 9 to 5, and that's what I cared about.
what was your first role at Horizon?
Technically, it was on the national team, which was like 4 or 5 people, and it was technically the network radio assistant, but it was adjacent to the TV stuff right away. And within a few months, I was a TV buyer and stayed with that for quite a while.
What a crazy run.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what were the most pivotal moments then that kind of helped shape the path throughout the process? Like, give me do you have any profound moment that you feel really propelled you or helped you get where you are today?
Me personally, or the agency as a whole?
Your choice, your world.
Well, I would say for the agency, there's certainly a couple of moments. I mean, Bill started the agency before I was around, and made really something out of nothing. When I joined, we are certainly on a growth trajectory, but Geico was a small client of ours at the time, and they grew, and we helped them grow for many years. That was big. I think that I remember the big couple of big wins we had. The really big kind of watershed moment for me, at least, was when we won the Capital One business in 2012 or 13, I think it was. That was a big, we've arrived kind of
Took
win.
it back a little bit to your ESPN days. They a lot of relationship between Capital One and ESPN over there.
That is true. That is true. We've helped grow that too. So that's kind of the agency side. Personally, I don't know if I can think of a moment. I think I've been, like I said, I was very lucky that the agency grew so much. There was always, opportunity. Never really felt like there was a ceiling on my growth. Couple months after I started, Bill hired Aaron Cohen to be the chief investment officer for. I mean, it was like six or I guess he oversaw probably local and stuff too, so it's more than that. But and he's like a legend in the business, and was a great mentor. But I was a assistant, maybe a buyer, I guess probably an assistant still, and a EVP, chief investment officer, whatever the title was exactly. I was working directly with him for all those years. So that was really, really helpful. But I would also say I feel like I learned as much from people that I saw who didn't do things the right way as I did from people who did things the right way. I try and tell people that, like, observe everything, and you sure take stuff from people you admire that are doing things the right way, but also notice the people who are not doing things the right way and learn from that too. And there's a couple of those throughout the year, a couple of people that I can think
We'll
of that
we'll keep those nameless, you know?
yeah, so we'll keep them nameless, but definitely gives you like a sense of like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I can see how that's a problem. I'm not gonna do that. So that's, to me, just as important. People talk about mentors and how much they learn from mentors, and that's really important. And I'm not trying to diminish that at all. But again, I learned just as much from people that I
Do
didn't
all the wrong things.
think they did
Like,
things well,
and what would you
but not
say has
to your
kind of been what would you say, Dave, has been your evolution as a leader? What do it's obviously different times than it was in the early 2000s all the way to now. Like, how would you say you've evolved? Where do you think you've grown?
I don't know if I honestly think a lot of the leadership qualities I have now are the same things that I started with when I was an assistant, and I wasn't necessarily leading anybody then, but I have always tried to treat everyone the same way. I mean by that is I show just as much reverence and attention to an assistant as I do an executive vice president. Obviously, I'm gonna have more FaceTime with certain people, certain levels now than others. But one of the things that surprises me the most is when people always act. Someone wants a half hour to talk about something, an assistant, a buyer, or someone comes in and they want to talk, just say hi or whatever, and I make time for them. That they're like, "You must be so busy. I can't believe you made time for it." I'm like, it's the easiest thing to do. It really is the easiest thing to do. Is set aside the time and make people feel, valued. So so I guess I'm in a different position. So I work with people a little bit different way, but that's always been the biggest thing to me, is just make everyone feel heard and valued, is the biggest step to leadership, and I try never to
You
to
try to never forget where you came from is the way I would define that, like you're like I was I was handing things to Stuart Scott back in
right.
at 3 o'clock in the morning about Darren Erstad on the Angels back in the 90s, and now I'm here. So gotta always remember where you came from, which I think is amazing. How do you kind of think about then adopting a better culture right now within your team and Horizon as things have changed? Like where do you typically focus your time? How do you try to think about that?
So I think the hard thing right now is, I think one of the hardest things right now is how do you continue to have a human personal touch in when everything is so technology heavy and data heavy and AI leaning, or heading towards AI. And I think that's important for us as an agency dealing with our clients. I think it's important as in my position dealing with media sellers. But I think it's also important dealing with your own people. And um, we're all in a somewhat hybrid work environment now, where we're in the office 3 days a week. But it's less face time than you used to get. There's less social time than you used to get. So how do you make people feel? So that's just an example of how technology helps because it gives us some flexibility, but it also, creates a challenge. There's some people I don't see. They might be remote, or even if they're here, I don't see as often because it's only 3 days a week. It's just less chance to bump into people and meet them face to face instead of on Zoom. And the social side of it too, just out for lunch, out for drinks, whatever, is has always been a part of like creating bonds with people. So I think it's showing up and continue even as the world changes and technology changes, making sure people still feel that personal touch because it's very easy to isolate and use screens and walk around with my nose in my phone and not say hi to people in the hallway and stuff like that. It's very, very easy. And it really is amazing how far just acknowledging people and saying hi and how's
Couldn't
your day.
agree more. Listen, I've been seeing Horizons everywhere, right? You guys are winning again, really taking off. You deserve it. I see from an outsider what you guys put in every day and the level of empathy, care, and innovation that you bring to your clients. How have you guys been evolving lately in a big way to try to meet the new needs of this world?
We've repositioned ourselves in the past year or so around our what we're calling our connected marketing platform, Blue. We didn't go out and buy a bunch of different companies and kind of piece them together to build our platform. We built it from the ground up. We built it from the ground up, really with the hindsight of what we're calling, second mover advantage, and seeing how it was done other places and what was done wrong, what was done right, and learning from that and building the best connected marketing platform from the ground up. So we're still in the early stages of it, but where we've gone, over the last year and a half has really been remarkable, and it's paying off in terms of new business wins with Charter Spectrum win a couple months ago, which is really a massive win for us.
Did that take you back to Connecticut or what? Aren't they up there?
They're in, yeah, it's in Stamford though, not up in Bristol.
Got it.
The beta right now is an LLM based audience builder and more, but the data source is where the audience was built from, and then allows you to adjust or correct that, grow it, add to it, whatever you want. It's very intuitive, and it really democratizes the data access. Any longer just have to rely on data scientists, building these audiences. It's really the powers in everyone's hands. So it's really powerful tool. It's really, helping lead us forward in this space. And like I said, that's not possible without AI. AI is also like everyone else. It's already started shaping our day-to-day work, streamlining where we can, taking shortcuts where it helps. and it'll continue to do so. I the flip side that I start to worry about is where AI has been helpful is replacing kind of the mundane tasks, often junior level tasks, but the mundane stuff that no one likes to do. Where I worry a little bit, really just on a global basis, is doing the mundane stuff is what you learn from. There's no shortcuts. There's no easy way. You got to do the mundane, shitty stuff before you can,
Kind of like when you move to a new neighborhood and all you use is Waze now, and you don't even know the blocks in your own neighborhood. I think that's the way I would describe it. Like the other day, it was pathetic. I was driving around where I live now, and I don't even know the street names.
you need to. I do that a lot. Like I use Google Maps all the time as a guide.
Crutch.
I don't just like blindly follow it. Like, I need to know where I'm going to because someday the satellites go down and I don't know how to get
You know what I'm
to.
saying? Like that's why I get it, man. That's why, like, I agree with that. It's like it's such a push and pull as a leader right now with these things because the beauty of learning through the mundane, but also the beauty of like just that watching a person grow. It's one of my favorite parts about leading anybody, right? So it's like
Right?
it's just such a crazy time.
I mean, I think everything is changing so much faster than it used to. It took 30 years for cable to catch up with broadcast and never really did. And then in a matter of a couple of years, streaming's passed both of them. So and just as another example on the video side, is just shocking how fast things happen. And AI is coming and it's coming fast. And like you said, it's a push and pull. We have to be prepared for it and utilize it as a tool without a doubt. But I think we also have to be, I think everybody has to be careful about what you lose when you're over reliant on, not
But
an
do you
over reliant. When you
but do you
start to
feel
implement
sometimes
AI, what do you start to lose?
do you feel sometimes like you're like feeling like the old guy in the room when you say that? Or are you feeling like you're being fair? Like where do you look at the balance of power when that's happening?
Um, I don't feel like the old guy because I understand its value and its importance and embrace the need to adopt any kind of automation and efficiencies, and AI brings both of those things. But I think there's areas where you can lose out if you're not really thoughtful about how you implement it. And if you, for example, and this isn't a Horizon example, this is more of, again, what you hear that's happening in the world, wipe out all the entry level positions because AI can do that work. Where are your next leaders coming from? Where are those people learning? If they, how do you ever get the professional level, the manager level, if you don't have people train as assistants, so it's how do you protect against something like that? I also worry. I hear a lot of times people talk about oh, we gotta create a PowerPoint, so we'll just throw an AI or ask AI the question, we'll dump AI answer in there, we'll use that. Okay, so we're a new business and we got a bunch of questions. Every agency's answering them in Chat GPT, and everyone's got the same stupid answer. Like, what sets us apart? What makes us different? Where's our unique perspective and thinking? Now, saying that, I'm exaggerating a little bit because there's a role for some of that. Some of that stuff is basic,
Course.
information that is repetitive and you can churn it out and you can use AI to help you do that. But are the people in control of filling that information out abusing AI or using it, overusing it, and
Actually human checking it, seeing if it has
right,
creativity, understanding
right,
the
right.
brand that they're speaking to. I think part of the I think one of the beauties of where this could go, and I've thought this for a couple of years with what we're up to, but I think this will allow less of an assembly line at times and get to more of a brand nuance if this is used correctly. And I think that's where I see Horizon taking things, which I think which will set you guys apart. With what I'm hearing, how much you care about each brand, the way things are put in, you want it to come out that way. If you guys start from an approach of thinking, less assembly, more brand first, and then you start to build off of that, I think that will set apart things over the next few years. And I think that's a big piece that I think you will definitely shepherd, knowing you.
Hey, I think the best way for us to think about it, our company ethos has always been business is personal, and it is how do you use AI and maintain business as personal, and that's what our challenge is, and we're going to use AI to the best of our advantage to continue to move us forward, but not lose that personal aspect either.
What is your mentality going to be? And that's why I've always felt this way about things. In terms of other questions I have for you, like I've always asked this to some of my guests. If you could have dinner with any person, can't be dead, and can't be your family, who would you pick?
Can't be dead. I have my pet answer is was always Kurt Vonnegut until he died. So let me think.
Can't be dead and can't be your family. Because I would go with my dad no matter what, as I tell every
Yeah.
person he's not alive, and I would love that. But like, uh, what would be your thought? What would you take out?
I answer I would love to have dinner with Nick Offerman. You know who Nick Offerman is?
Wow, that's an interest. I've never heard that. That would be the least answer I may have
Well, do
ever.
you know who Nick Offerman is?
I do, by the way, but that's why I'm like,
So he's started out as a theater actor. He moved to California to become an actor, and instead became a carpenter because he didn't want to rely on casting directors, uh, determining his fate, and became a really great actor, but also you know builds canoes and guitars and has a massive wood shop where he sells fine furniture, and he's written books, and is really well read and articulate, and he's a really interesting
you
guy.
like him better with the mustache, shaved, full beard.
Full
Which?
beard,
How does he have to
probably.
show up at the dinner?
Full beard, probably.
All
Uh,
right,
but
this
no,
is
he's a really fascinating guy, and he doesn't do a ton of podcasts, but I think I've listened to all the ones he's been on, and he has really interesting insights about life and stuff like that.
let's tell you something. You like people that are, I wouldn't say controversial, but definitely diverse in their capabilities based on that, huh?
I like people who are yes, worldly and have their interests in a lot of different places. Yeah.
Whereas if you were helping then your kids in this upbringing, how are you trying to help them stay personal?
Oh, geez. I have 3 kids of 3 very varying ages from 19 to 8, and
Oh, that's why I was curious how you're doing it right
a
now.
lot of different here's the simplest thing. When we go out to dinner, we don't have any phones out, and we
Okay.
make our kids, from the time they can speak, order their own food and
Okay.
look waiter or waitress in the eye, and articulate what they want and say
But if
thank
they
you.
want 9 things on the menu, just letting them go off
Well,
no
we have
matter
some
what? They
guidelines
allowed
of
to
what
order ice cream for breakfast? What's going
but
on
we
there?
have some guidelines of what they can order, but it's important that they do it for themselves. And that's a small thing, but it's very emblematic, I think, of one, engaging with humans and not your screen, and two, as kids being able to have the confidence to speak to adults and speak to them politely and respectfully. And I think not just that, but that is symbolic of how we try and raise good kids who can have conversations with humans and not just uh you know absorbed in their screens.
It's
And
gonna be crazy the difference between, like, your 19-year-old and 8-year-old's life now, with the way things are moving as fast as they are. Well, listen, this was, a lot of fun talking to you. One of my, uh one of my favorites, so thank you for joining us,
thank you for having me.
and, hopefully we'll have you again soon, and maybe I'll get Nick Offerman on, and that will be, I'll surprise you with
I think
him, on the next episode.
I
We'll
think he's
see
a
if we
tough
can pull
get.
it off. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Hannah, one of the producers for Sightly's Breaking Through the Mayhem podcast. We want to thank you so much for listening to the show. If you want to learn more about the guests we had on today, we included additional information about them in the show notes. Finally, if you'd like to be on the podcast, or if you know someone that would make a great fit, you could fill out the form at sightly.com/podcast. We hope you have a great day.